Welcome to Tales of Bedlam. This is a special bonus podcast with an interview, our first interview where Dustin and I talked to Amelia Brown. We were privileged to run across this very talented author on our quest to find nuggets of hidden wisdom in tales both old and new. We really do hope you enjoy her modern coming-of-age fairy tales as much as we do. And please be sure to visit Amelia's blog, Fairy Tale Stories and Other Tales, for more amazing stories. We will list her blog site in our show notes, or you can just go to fairystoriesandothertales.com. That would be fairystoriesandothertales.com. Don't forget to subscribe. Now, on to the interview.
Awesome.
And how long have you been living in the UK?
Jeez, it feels like forever. A year and a half.
Oh, I guess we should introduce ourselves. I'm Micah.
Yeah.
And
This is Dustin.
Yes.
and we know who you are, so
Yeah. And I know who you are.
It's very nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
But I didn't think you would know whose voice was whose. Well, maybe you did from listening to our podcast. So
I feel like Micah has said a number of times things to Dustin. And so then I inferred.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't give my name at the beginning. I don't want people stalking me. Paparazzi hanging outside my house.
He's very weird like that.
That's so funny.
Well, we're very grateful that you submitted to doing a interview with us.
Oh,
Yeah, this is our first interview. So
Yeah, we've never
really,
done one before, so if we stumble around, please forgive us.
well, here's the full truth of it, though. This is my first interview as an author.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I have this sort of trepidation. It was kind of a big deal actually for me to say yes. I went back and forth because I think you had asked me when we were still negotiating the situation with the fairy tales, and so I hadn't heard your podcast yet, and then I heard your podcast, or maybe you had asked about the interview after I'd heard the podcast. But my initial thought was, absolutely, these guys are so funny.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well,
it'll be pretty informal and fun. And Mike is really good at editing, so don't worry about any ums or ahs or.
Good to know. I have a sneaky suspicion. Well, who knows? Who knows what I might or might not say. Apparently, I forget to say a lot of things. I just realized my whole author's blurb says nothing about being an American, which is not on purpose, and actually should be remedied because I need to find a U.S. agent. The having a UK agent is not helpful when I move back to
Right.
Yeah,
well, we're just excited to have such an accomplished author as our first interview. So we're just tickled to death to get to do this.
Well, that's very kind.
So I would first like to ask, because reading your stories, we really felt that there was a lot of personal experience, like in the Friendly Ogre. We really felt that maybe some of that had to do with maybe friends or family in your past. Do you write from personal experience and put it in a fairy tale genre?
Sometimes. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the parts that I laughed at the loudest listening to the Friendly Ogre being read was the idea that the Friendly Ogre was based on my grandfather.
Right.
But the only grandfather that I knew was quite a skinny, tiny fellow who actually happened to be British. But I think the things that get put in my stories more than encounters are more philosophical concepts and thoughts.
Okay.
Sure.
And just sort of things that have lived in my imagination. So quite possibly, and I think that this might actually be true, I do often create fictitious family. In part because, well, at this point, for example, my grandfathers have passed away. And I think I have this idea in my head that sort of if C.S. Lewis and Tolkien had a baby, that would be my perfect grandfather.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Would he be sitting in a pub drinking ale.
Well, yeah. With his little
in Cambridge.
feather pen.
Yeah.
Do you do that? Have you been to that pub that they were? I don't remember the name of it.
The Eagle and Child, or as they like to
Oh, have you been there?
Yes, I have.
That would be on my bucket list.
Jealous.
It's pretty cool. I will say, it's a bit. So the first time I visited it, I was served a hot apple cider by a gentleman with a mohawk and more piercings than I'd ever seen before. But the pub itself is still quite. They don't renovate pubs very often because they're protected historically as historical sites oftentimes here. But they have a shrine to Lewis and Tolkien and the other members of the Inklings.
Oh, wow.
With candles and everything. So
wow.
With the pierced mohawk waiter. That's amazing.
Yeah, who I'm sure just rolls his eyes at the flock of tourists that strain those doors.
Yeah, and I kind of have that picture in my head of the UK as an American when we watch TV, and they always show the punk kids with the mohawks and the black leather and the studs running all around. It's like they've been taken over by emos.
This is my street that I live on. I mean, just every day. It's the zombie apocalypse, but instead of zombies, it's mohawked, pierced leather people.
Amazing.
I'm joking.
So do any of those end up in your stories?
The people that I meet.
Yes, the mohawk, emo.
Sometimes. Usually
Could you give us an example?
Well, okay, I don't know if either of you have read The Name of the Wind. I highly suspect that you guys would like it, just because there's such an influence of myth and story in his books. The thing is, I have characters that I have based on Patrick Rothfuss, the author, who's quite a personality. So there's a story that I wrote called The Old Man and the Whistle. And it's a story about a kid who comes across a homeless person and basically feels compelled to, he's asking for change and she feels compelled to give him change. But sort of the process that goes through her head as she's doing it. Now, obviously, I'm influenced by the nature of social justice and like that sort of thing as I'm going through this. But more than that, it's more the intricacies and all the different facets that surround this. But the reason why I read that story is because Patrick Rothfuss has a blog and he has a charity called Heifer International. Well, his charity is actually called World Builders, but they donate money to Heifers International. And his kid, I feel like he started collecting for this when he was 5. Every year, he spends all year collecting all the money that he possibly can, giving all of his pocket change to try and buy an animal, which is what Heifer International does, is they donate animals to communities to try and create sustainable opportunity for people.
Oh, very nice.
Like an animal that they can...
Like a cow or a goat or...
eat or milk or get eggs
Chickens
from. Okay.
Exactly. Usually things that they can make more of. So usually it's not for meat because then obviously the cows or whatever it is gone. But it might be chickens, which could be for meat, but also for eggs. And then they can sell the eggs at the market. And
nice.
Sometimes it'll be clean water tanks and that sort of thing. So I was very inspired by Patrick Rothfuss's son doing this incredibly amazing thing that I think a lot of kids actually have the capacity and the desire to participate in. And not just kids, but adults too. And I think sometimes when we think about just the world through a kid's eyes, we have a lot more confidence, weirdly. So that's one example of the kind of inspiration behind a lot of the tales that I write.
Ah, very nice. I've noticed the social justice themes and the more leaning towards, feminism. Feminism always gets people's backs up, but less patriarchal than the stories that we read all the time in your work.
The Brothers Grimm. But the Brothers Grimm is so funny because I feel like sometimes it shows up in weird ways and sometimes it's not quite patriarchal because there are these women who have these successes, but it is through virtue and I don't know. I mean, the women obviously are motivated more by virtue. I feel like all the women who succeed, they have this virtue component. Which I guess maybe you wouldn't necessarily call feminist. But then, I don't know, I feel like women and men should have virtue. So, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, in Brothers Grimm too, there's a lot of men just chasing beauty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's always the beautiful princess,
Right.
not the smart princess or
Yeah.
the intriguing princess or the clever princess.
Yes,
So-
this is true. This is
Yeah.
very true.
But yeah, and like you said, Grimm runs the gambit, and every now and then we'll get a story. I'm remembering Clever Gretel,
Yes.
where it certainly wasn't virtue. She just tricked the crap out of everybody at the end.
She was a little naughty, but she was very, very clever.
But she was the heroine of the story, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
but it
Well, and
wasn't beauty or
There's another
ahead.
story. I feel like there's a Brothers Grimm version of this, but there's also a Russian myth about. No, there's definitely a Brothers Grimm story. I just can't remember what it's called. Where the stepmother sends the girl down a well, and she meets a witch, I think, and then works for the witch, and she's used to hard work, and so she continues to work, and then the witch sets her free and gives her all this gold and sends her back home. I can't remember what it's called. And then the stepmother sees all the gold, and she's like, oh, I think that my daughter should have all this gold. So she sends the stepdaughter down, or her actual daughter down, who's never done a day of work. But I don't know if there's any commentary in that about beauty or not. Although I will say that the work that she's doing is what we might call domestic chores. So, yeah.
right.
We will definitely look that one up. I'm not
That
familiar
sounds
with it.
really similar to the Vasilisa story we did, the
Yeah.
Russian one, where the stepmother sent her to Baba Yaga,
Mhm.
and she
Oh.
worked with
To
Baba Yaga and then
to
sent her
obtain
back.
right.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
get the light.
Well, it's the same with the Father Frost story too, which is not Vasilisa. It's just an M. There's a book series that's based on it right now. But the daughter gets sent to Father Frost, comes back with riches. Stepdaughter gets sent, comes back with riches. Which, yeah, is the same as the Baba Yaga one for Vasilisa the Wise.
Oh, we love Baba Yaga.
Yeah, me too.
That's always from my childhood. I loved Baba Yaga.
Yeah, really.
From your childhood, what were some of your favorite stories?
Boy, gosh, I am a Narnia fan through and through.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I think my mom and dad read me Narnia when I was 5, maybe. The Last Battle
Very
was a
nice.
little rough. But other than The Last Battle, I think The Last Battle was just sort of interesting to me. It didn't feel quite like a fairy tale. The rest of it felt like a fairy tale. Actually, this is a true story. I have had a very hard time not believing that Narnia is real.
When I was a kid, I had I went into every closet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. In fact, I shouldn't say this. This is like, well, you can wipe it if you want. I don't know if this is humiliating or not. I swear, my husband and I, like 4 months ago, decided we hadn't been in the wardrobe in our flat that we have. And we just thought, why not? Who knew? So we
You never
definitely,
know.
explored. Unfortunately, well, who knows? It's the same instance that I came back, but I feel like I don't have the kind of tales I would have if I had been to Narnia.
Well, it's good to see that you still have a sense of adventure, a childlike adventure, and you put that into your stories. So that's wonderful.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
What was your favorite character in the Tales of Narnia?
Oh my gosh.
Boy. It's hard to remember what it was then. I really liked Mr. Tumnus as a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Mr.
I was
Tumnus.
a Reap and Cheap fan.
Reap and Cheap. I could see that. I feel like my brother was into Reap and Cheap. I know who I hated the most, and that was the Silver Chair Witch, the Green Witch.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Boy. I think I still have nightmares.
Oh man.
Definitely. My mom never read to me from the Brothers Grimm, definitely as a child. And even fairy tales were touch and go because I think she thought they were too scary. I don't know what was her to think the Silver Chair was not too scary.
Yeah. We've talked about that a couple times. That man, did they sit down and just tell these stories to their kids before they went to bed? I mean, wow. Some of them were really gruesome and terrifying.
Yeah. There's a series of Russian fairy tales I think it's called Old Peter's Tales. I think the first publication was in 1916 by a British man whose name I'm forgetting. But I think it's called Old Peter's Tales. And it's told as if this grandfather is telling his grandchildren these old tales. And I've never read anything like it because each tale is separated by chapters, but it's sort of like how you could imagine these stories coming up and how little kids would ask for them. And I don't know, maybe kids are really resilient. Maybe people told them darker things. I don't know.
I believe that it gives them the opportunity to face the fear or put it down until they're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an author, Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you've read any of his stuff. He's also heavily influenced by myth and fairy tale. He wrote the book Stardust, which I think is a fairy tale book.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. He's amazing. And he's got a bazillion awards to show that he's amazing. But he is a firm believer that kids self-edit. Kids know when they're ready for things. It doesn't matter, really. Although he has this one story where he gave his daughter, I think his 10-year-old daughter at the time, a Stephen King book. And to this day, his daughter will not read Stephen King. That was it.
Yeah, I had a traumatic experience with Stephen King movie when I was like 10 or 11. It. And I still walk wide of sewer grates, and clowns terrify me.
Yeah.
That was just the most awful thing I ever did to myself.
I don't think I'll ever do it to myself. I think even today I would be too afraid to watch a Stephen King movie besides like Shawshank or, The Green Mile or something. I don't think I'll ever do one of his horror films.
Do you read his books?
So I've read some of his short stories.
Okay.
I read a lot of his Twitter feed because he's funny. My husband is reading the Dark Tower series right now, which is his Tolkien-esque Western series.
Oh, nice.
I have not read those yet.
It's not scary, my husband swears, but he also sort of laughed at The Shining, so.
Oh my gosh.
My wife and I think The Shining's just fun.
What? The book or the movie?
The movie, my wife hasn't read the book, but I've read the book. So I like them both, but maybe I'm a little morbid because I really loved Pet Sematary when I was a kid, and it didn't scare me at all. So,
all right.
I'm not on that page at all.
Stephen King is for you, Micah.
No, I did like Last Unicorn and The Hobbit, and those were mine.
Yes. I only read The Last Unicorn last year, I think.
Oh, man. Well, that was one of my favorites when I was a kid.
Gosh, that's good. And it's so clever as an adult, too, to see all of the commentary.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Don't you find it amazing, too, if you've read a book when you were a kid and then you reread it as you're older, that you get so much more from it, and what you get is so different than when you were a child?
Oh, this is very true. So rereading, and I think about this when I write my stories too, and especially when I'm working on any sort of new manuscript, rereading is so important to me. And I think it's important for people to try and reread, because you never know what you're going to get out of it the next time. And I think, and especially, when you're a kid and you read something and as an adult, it's a profound experience to see, kind of reflect on where you were as a kid. Like when you smell something and you've smelt it before, it takes you back to that memory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think it's the same with reading in a way, but you build so much more from what further life experience you have.
Yeah, you can filter it through that experience.
Yeah. But nobody should publish anything ever unless it has the capacity to be reread. And I think that's the standard that people should have for the work that they do.
That makes perfect sense.
I'm a rereader.
That's a very good way to, I guess, judge a book.
Mm-hmm.
Would you read it again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm on my, let's see, when was the first time I read Harry Potter? I must have been, because the Harry Potter is the book of sort of my generation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know. Is it weird if the last book came out when I was 25 and still read it as soon as
No,
it's out.
That's not weird at
not
all.
at all.
But I've read it so I would reread it every time a book would come out. And then a few years ago, I started just rereading it every year. And
I did the exact same thing with the Robert Jordan's Eye of the World series.
Go you!
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Every time a new one would come out, I'd reread it all the way up till there.
Oh my
Read the new
gosh.
one.
That's a
Yep.
lot of reading too.
That is a journey. I am only on the second book myself.
Oh my gosh.
I'm embarrassed to admit. I'm in the middle of The Great Hunt, and it's been 2 years. I've read a lot of stuff since then.
Oh,
When he died, I almost drove to his grave to dig him up and smack him. I was so mad because it was so close to the end. I'm like, no, you can't do that to me. I've been
What are
reading
your
these for
thoughts on-
20 years.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Brandon Sanderson? Did
He did a absolutely amazingly fantastic job.
Cool.
I was not
This is good to
the
know.
least bit disappointed.
I always get back into writing again if I've had if I've been in the middle of marking papers or lecturing my day job. I started with The Eye of the World, and then I read The Great Hunt, and there's something about those books that makes me want to write.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had that feeling. I never acted on it, though. One of these days.
There's still time.
there's still time. Maybe you can help us with an argument that Dustin and I have had. So, do you think audiobooks are cheating?
Boy, you're asking the wrong person. So I have a very difficult. So here's the thing. I say this now. 10 years from now, myself might be very different. And I hear that people, when they have kids, they get into audiobooks a lot more for whatever reason. I just am not the biggest. I cannot get into a book if I'm listening to an audiobook. Do I think it's cheating?
Okay.
It's a time issue.
Then.
I believe that's the biggest issue. It's a time issue.
Yeah.
Especially when you have kids. And I've noticed that since I've had kids.
Well, I
Yeah.
have 3 kids, a full-time job, and a podcast, so I have no time.
Yeah. No, this is true. So the audiobook is very helpful. And a lot of my friends, I'll recommend a book and then I'll hear that they're doing the audio version. And I wonder, especially if the author themselves is reading the audiobook, I wonder if I'm missing out.
I think when an author reads it, it's the best. But there are some talented readers out there. But wow, the author adds just a little more, I guess, the feeling to it. So just like if somebody sings a song that they wrote, I think they usually get the feeling in it more because it's something about it's song's
part of them
about their lives. Whereas if somebody else goes and redoes it, doesn't usually get the same effect.
Yeah.
I think that's my.
I think you're right.
I've listened to several audiobooks and but they're books that I'd already read. I haven't listened to just a new book as an audiobook. I've kind of reread, so I've read them before and then I listen to the audiobook.
Gotcha. I will say I've only ever read a Terry Pratchett book via audiobook for road trips.
Terry Pratchett is one of my favorites.
He's,
absolutely amazing. Have you watched any of his shows?
No, I haven't, but I did. So my parents are big Terry Pratchett fans. I am just getting into it.
Oh, okay.
But I love him as a person. I mourned his passing profoundly. It really actually it made me so incredibly sad. And I hadn't even read that many of his books. It's just him as an author and the advice he gives and the type of person he presented himself. Oh, yeah. But his audiobooks, he's not reading them. Someone else is reading them. But yeah, they're very good. Well, if you love Terry Pratchett, you will love Neil Gaiman. They were kindred spirits and quite close.
I will check that out because I love Terry Pratchett ever since I was a little kid and I discovered Discworld. I even played a computer Discworld game with my best friend at the time when I was a kid. I couldn't get enough of Terry Pratchett. So
you know he has books for kids.
Yes, too. He does. Yep.
Okay. Oh, you know.
He's amazing. He was a very prolific, amazing author. So let's talk some more about you. We have a couple questions like what in the world is 81 Words Anthology, and how do you fit in?
Yeah, we butchered that in the intro on both of them. We're like, ugh. Anthology, 80 is hard to say.
That was really funny. Yeah, so the 81 Words Anthology is this guy who, and it's not that big of a deal, and I think anybody can participate, but it's something nice to put on a resume. It's this anthology of this guy who's taking the first, I think, 500 applicants or something like that he likes their stories. He has to like your story. That is a story, a short story in 81 words.
Oh, that makes sense.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, but he has to get to the 500 count to have enough in the book.
And then he publishes them.
Yeah, and I think he's got like 400 something.
And yours is one of them.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Awesome. I have to read that one.
Has he done more than one? Does he just get 500? Oh, so he's on his first one.
Yeah, he's published a few other anthologies. It's sort of a fun thing that writers participate in just for kicks. Yeah.
That's pretty short, 81 words.
That is pretty short.
I believe my story involves a woman, some magic, and a compost heap.
Nice. We like a good compost twist.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. How about the Dead Rabbits Society? Is it Society?
The Dead Rabbits Literary Press.
It's a literary thing, yeah.
Yeah, they're a new publishing company within the last 5 years that have developed out of New York. We connected based on my blog. They liked my stories. And their tagline is that they publish things that matter. And why this meant a lot to me and why I agreed to write for them, in part because, well, pretty much anybody who likes my stories, I'm like, yes, I will do whatever you want. You have validated me as a person, and yeah, you may have all of my work. But the thing is that they publish things that a lot of publishing companies will sort of skirt around because they matter. So it will be things like commentary or essay or memoir or stories. I don't know if you have seen this, but there aren't that many anthologies of short stories out there. And that's because they don't sell. Right. So publishing companies often shirk, I think, their duty to publish good literature, but they have a business reason for it. And I understand. It's one of the great perks, I think, of having a successful novel or successful series is you have this great gift where you get to write short stories, right? And then you publish them. But there's not a huge a dearth, as it were. There's a dearth of short stories anthologies out there, and Dead Rabbits is interested in that sort of thing. Yeah, and in the underpinnings behind writing as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, we've followed them on Twitter. I do all the Twitter stuff, so Micah doesn't know anything about it. But
I don't know why I suspected that, but I did suspect it was you.
I'm too busy editing and not twisting.
He does all the technical stuff. I do the public face.
Gotcha.
So you describe yourself as semi-retired at great risk. What are your plans for the future? Are you working on your second book?
Because this was my big endeavor. I had quit my job as an academic. I had been trying to quit for years, and people just kept offering me more, things I needed, like, steady employment, money.
Right, money.
And then I just sort of realized, we needed to have the money right now. My husband's getting his PhD. Eventually he will be employed someday, and maybe we can take another stab at this. But I had so much work that we were able to save enough that I could quit my job and write. And I was very excited about this. So I actually put in my bio that I was retired from teaching, which felt like the right move at the time. It's a hard decision because when you're in an academic world, you've worked so hard to get there. But I just felt so passionate about writing. It felt like the right move. So I quit. 2 weeks later, the woman who had been sort of above me went on maternity leave at the university, freaked out because they didn't know what they were going to do, and asked if I would help. I'm a very ethical person. I'm actually an ethicist by trade, hence maybe the moral concerns in my tales and the importance of fairy stories in general. And then so I couldn't put retired anymore. So on a whim, at the last second, because the post was going out the next day, I said, can you put semi-retired?
We got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Long story for that. So yeah, so I am still working in academia. Maybe I will, who knows, forever, but I can't not write. So writing is definitely part of the end game. Who knows what will happen? I am working on a second novel. I do think that the agents are going to be interested in it because I'm writing it to their tone. They've asked for what they want, and I'm delighted and thrilled that they think I'm a good enough writer to provide that for them. And then who knows? One of my favorite authors, Laurie R. King, writes a series called the Mary Russell series. It's a Sherlock Holmes kind of book. But so Sherlock Holmes is actually in the book, but there's kind of a female Sherlock Holmes.
Oh,
Okay.
It's fabulous. Unbelievably well written. The first book is called The Beekeeper's Apprentice. She wrote this book in 28 days. It's like a 500-page novel.
Man.
Yeah, I know. It is incredible. It is so well written. It is unbelievably enthralling. And no publisher would touch it when she first published this book. Or first wrote the book. She submitted it to all kinds of different agents. No one would touch it. So she was like, I think it was 3 years later, she was like, okay, I'll write another book. So she wrote another book. This book got picked up. And then after she had made a name for herself, she could publish The Beekeeper's Apprentice.
Right.
Which her highly successful series. Now, who knows?
Right. And that kind of goes back to we were talking about the short story thing. You kind of got to get one in there and then get the name recognition, and then you can go back to the earlier stuff.
I know that I'm a newbie to all of this, even though I've been writing since I was 5. And even though I've been sort of, wiggling through even some of the industry for the last 5 years. But I mean, people write till they die, Robert Jordan,
right?
For example. This is a lifelong pursuit, and I think it should be taken seriously. And I think it should be taken, it's a privilege to be part of this world. And it makes me delighted more than I can say that people like some of the stuff that I write. It's very exciting.
Yeah,
and this is just
absolutely
the beginning of it.
I love to hear the passion you seem to have.
It definitely comes through.
Maybe some of it will rub off on Dustin and I, and we can take this even further.
Well, I think your podcast is hysterically funny. I actually, if I'm completely honest, I'd never listened to a podcast before.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We'll get that quite a bit, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I listened to it, and now I'm a bit like, it's so great and it's so fun. And I don't even have it's England. Everybody walks everywhere. I don't even have a car to plug in and listen to. I literally sit down at my desk, and this is my time when I listen to Tales of Bedlam.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
I'm just blushing. So
you've embarrassed my guy.
Aw.
So when we were setting this up and kind of talking earlier, you'd mentioned this, the fairy tales, stories, and other tales is where your blog is, but you had some. You'd mentioned some darker material that you had that you didn't have on there. Is that available somewhere, or you want to talk about that?
The purpose behind the blog occurred to me a year and a half ago when I started Fairy Stories. It would be really cool to get to put out something into the world that was full of light.
Mm-hmm.
So my fairy tales, they never end badly. There are dark things that go through them, but on the blog, it's a place where hard things can be explored, but the hope can be found.
Right.
And I like to think that there's hope in everything that I write, because that's something that means quite a lot to me, and I think can be found even in the darkest of circumstances. Mm-hmm. Most of the things that I often write do not necessarily end happily, and not all, I don't know, nobody learns their lesson, or I don't know, maybe sometimes people do. But so I won an award a few years ago for a short story that I submitted to a competition called Galaxy Writers of the Future, entitled A Whim at the Edge of Space. Mm-hmm. And it's still getting considered for publication. And I have kind of suspicion that it might be picked up soon. It is definitely not a happy-go-lucky tale and ends quite tragically. Yeah, I guess you can keep an eye out for it. A Woman at the Edge of Space. Who knows? So the novel that I am looking that I may have to publish at a later date, for example, would be a change of pace, definitely, for my fairy tales. It's actually called an ignoble tale because nobody in it does anything right.
Oh man.
So
that kind of sounded. That just made me think of Shakespeare. That just sounds like a Shakespeare title.
I'm a bit obsessed. I was actually trained as a Shakespeare actor for a time.
Nice.
There's nothing better written than things that are Shakespeare.
Oh man, maybe we'll do that sometime. We'll get some Shakespeare excerpts and make Micah read them.
Yes, that would be so funny. It's the commentary part that's the best to own the voices. Oh yeah, that would be so funny. Oh, especially the insults. I can imagine you two looking at each other and being like, what do they mean? Folks come.
Sometimes I wish people could see us when we're doing it because the faces we give each other. Most of the tales Dustin hasn't read, or we try so that he gets more of a surprised response, and it's funny to see his face sometimes. Like we recorded one just the other night. It's an American tale. Its name
was awful.
What was the name?
It started out with the man-eating wife.
The man-eating wife, the little old woman, and the morning star.
Oh.
And this tale goes all over the place.
Cannibalism.
That's amazing.
Human maracas. It was just weird.
Very interesting.
But you never know what you can learn from this, because I hear man-eating wife and I think, ooh, this is going to be a tale about how to not be a man-eating wife.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
You could take that from the tale. Or you could get a taste for cannibalism, I guess.
Oh man, that's disgusting. There's weird cannibalism stories, and I think in some South American tales too.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, that hasn't been on our list yet. South America.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah,
we put some African tales and Russian and.
There's so many. It just boggles my mind when I just start doing searches. I just find new tales all over the place.
What's weird is the overlap. Mm-hmm. Is that there are similarities between cultures that never touched.
Yes.
And this blows my mind. Like the Russian tales and the Brothers Grimm, there's some overlap. The creatures, I get very excited about this. Creatures like the domovoi from Russian, the hearth deities in Russian mythology act very similarly to I can't remember. I think it's there are these hearth creatures in British folklore, in Celtic folklore, and I can't remember what they're called. But they then became the brownies and the hobs.
Oh, okay.
Sort of creatures. They have such similar functions, and yet these cultures didn't really touch while these stories were developing. I find this fascinating. I'd love to do like a research project.
Yeah, I wish I had the time, because a lot of the stories that we read, we find, well, this is weird.
This sounds
this American tale is an awful lot like this German tale. I wonder how they.
The Egyptian tale was a lot like Brothers Grimm.
Yes. We did an Egyptian tale that we were like, are we sure this is Egyptian?
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting. I was actually just talking to a 9-year-old today about the Percy Jackson series.
Right.
I don't know if you guys know about it, but it's based on They're really interesting about Greek mythology, and he has a series on Roman mythology and a series on Egyptian mythology. And it's fictitious, and he adds a lot to it, but you can see overlap between all three pretty profoundly. I guess maybe it's not surprising the similarities between the Greek and the Roman mythology, but the Egyptian and the Greek mythology are so close. I mean, they did touch as cultures, but I don't know. Yeah. It's fascinating.
I wish I had the time to just research stuff like that. Maybe I will someday, and maybe you'll get more time to do that too. Even the stories from the 1400s to now, if we look at our movies like Gremlins, I mean, the Mogwai is actually a fairy tale from the Chinese culture. And yet we have it in movies today. We've kind of stolen that idea. And I don't know, Spielberg again. We're always talking about Spielberg.
Well, the man's a genius. Except for Temple of Doom.
He's a good...
I think he's still a genius. He just made a mistake.
Temple of Doom. Yes, I agree.
Now we're going down a different rabbit hole. Mike and I don't agree on movies. It's very contentious.
Wait, which one of you actually enjoys Temple of Doom?
Oh, well, that'd have been me.
All right. Go you. Way to stand out.
But
That's good.
I really like the John Wick movies, and he can't stand them. And boy,
I didn't say I can't stand them. I just don't think that if someone kills your puppy, you should kill 100 and some people after that. But anyway.
Yeah, we won't go down that. We won't go down that road today.
Today is about you, Amelia, not our arguments.
I feel like there's so little out there in the world that is devoted to humor, and I wish there was more of it.
Mm-hmm. I think you have humor in your stories. The Boy and the Bear, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
go find me.
The whole idea was just exciting and definitely made me laugh. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do sometimes like to think that they're funny. I just didn't know if it came across. Again, yeah, who knows?
Well, if somebody doesn't laugh at that story, I think there's something wrong with them. Because it was endearing and humorous to me, for sure.
I'm glad.
Is there anything that you would like to tell us about that? I mean, of course, we have a link on our website for you, and we will put links for people to subscribe to your blog. Is there a shout out or anything you want to add to the interview that touts your work or upcoming work?
Gosh, I feel like what I should be touting is your podcast.
No, we do that.
No, I don't. It's just when I get excited about things, I want to tell. I'm like that person, that's super annoying that talks about the same thing every time you meet them. Have you heard blah, blah, blah? Have you heard blah, blah, blah? Because I get excited about it. Like The Name of the Wind. Mm-hmm. I tell everybody about The Name of the Wind, which you should read it.
I have it written
Dustin
down.
Especially.
Dustin actually already looked it up on his phone. So.
Oh, yeah.
If you like Robert Jordan, Patrick Rothfuss is kind of a funnier, less. He's got looser. What's the word? Morals. Robert Jordan. But he's such a good writer. The Slow Regard of Silent Things is my absolute favorite book of all time, and it is a novella that is a companion book to The Name of the Wind.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk about other authors as my last hurrah. I don't know. I guess if I write the fairy tales because I want to put something good out there.
That hope that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And to follow your path.
Yeah.
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 And you do those weekly, right?
I do.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder, when will I run out? Especially because I'm writing so much for publication right now and trying to finish the novel before the agents lose interest. But it's still the best part of my week. Yeah, it's coming up with, I don't know, crazy, weird things. And the best part about writing, I feel like, is that it is complete imagination just put down on paper.
Yeah.
Well, we will tout your blog, and we will try to push people to subscribe, and even if you won't, because we enjoy your work.
Yep.
And we're hoping that here in the future, you'll let us do another one of your stories.
Oh, gosh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much for doing this for us.
Thank you. Thank you for liking my stories.
Thanks for being our guinea pig for our very first interview. Hopefully we were decent guests, And we definitely have learned a lot from this already with my notes. I'm just thinking, and next time I need to ask these sort of things. And,
once you get your novel published, we'll have you back. We'll talk about that.
Oh, yes. That would be amazing. I mean, you'd probably be pretty busy at the time, but if you did, we'd be happy to.
I would do it in a heartbeat. Maybe this won't go on maybe you won't put this on the thing, but I think that what you guys are doing is really, really cool.
Thank you.
I think it's great and the fact that kids can listen to you guys and adults can listen to you guys, but I think that fairy tales are so important. And I feel like, I don't know, it brings to life this idea of talking about things that really matter. Mm-hmm. And it makes my heart so happy that you guys are out there doing this. And I feel like I'm going to be following you guys for a long time and hitting retweet and like doing publication stuff forever.
Thank you
because I think this podcast is so awesome and hilarious.
And then in this digital world, we have to share each other in order for more people to see it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think in this digital world, there's a lot of really awful things out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I feel like you guys are using it as a force for good. I feel like you're showing people how technology can be used as something that is wonderful and life-giving. And that's really rare.
Well, great. Yeah, Thank you so much. That. And we wish you the best on your novel. Don't ever give up. Your passion is inspiring. And we hope that it never fades.
Thank you.
And of course, we're going to keep following you. And maybe someday when your novel comes out, I can get the audio version and you'll be reading it.
Well, that is the great thing about being trained in the theater. I will definitely be reading my own book.
Awesome.
Someday.
I am looking forward to it.
I'll read the hardback copy.
If
I can kick some of my kids out to college, then maybe I'll be reading the hardback copy. But
yeah, but maybe by then I'll be having to rear my kids.
And there you go.
And then I won't have any time for anything.
A new adventure.
I won't be able to do the audiobook. No, I'll always be able to do the audiobook.
Yes,
then you'll have that experience to filter your stuff through, and that changes everything.
Yeah. No worries.
Thank you so much for doing that, and thank your husband for letting us borrow you for just a little bit. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
And I hope you have a great night.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Amelia.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you again soon. Bye.